Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Tristana Perkle and I'm the director for the School Garden Support Organization-Network, otherwise known as the SGSO-Network. Today I am thrilled to introduce this presentation, which details where the SGSO-Network has been and where we're going through our inaugural strategic plan. You can watch the presentation in full, or you can use the links below to jump to different sections that you're interested in. Hope you enjoy.
So a lot of you have probably seen this slide. This summarizes our peer-to-peer opportunities. This is how we've been operating since about 2014-ish, webinars, in-person gatherings, and digital resources. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth on those as we move forward. But let's first take a look at our pathway to where we're at. So at the next slide here, a little bit of our growth timeline. So in 2012, I pitched this idea of like, hey, let's get people that support multiple school gardens together to start talking shop. And I did that in an open space session at the 2012 Farm to Cafeteria Conference in Burlington, Vermont. A group of people came together. A small subset of them were school garden support professionals supporting multiple school gardens. There was a larger subset like, I want to learn how to plant carrots with my kids. And we broke off into two groups. And the group that was supporting multiple gardens, that was kind of the birth of the School Garden Support Organization-Network. And in 2014, we kind of figured out our name and how to frame ourselves and define that we're supporting school garden support professionals. In 2016, myself and my coworker Whitney met with Hope Kids Foundation, and we pitched the idea of what if we brought together leaders, teams of leaders, and talk shop about school gardens. And that's when we had our first Leadership Institute that many of you on this call and that continue to participate in our network have been a part of over the years. And from that work, we started sharing what happens at our Leadership Institutes and the dialogue between these peer-to-peer and resource sharing sessions. We shared this information via our webinars. And so we were doing this webinars, some light gatherings at other conferences, Leadership Institutes, but we recognized that there's a lot of movement in the school garden scene. And at that time, we crossed paths with the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation. So our loose group of folks networking, talking about school gardens, met with Lindsay Waugh from the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation. While she was funding people that support school gardens across the country, and our network was networking with folks, we both recognized that we want to make a peer-to-peer knowledge network and build the strength between peer organizations. And so with collaboration of the Sprouts Healthy Community Foundation, we've created our strategic plan, which we're going to share in more detail. And some of you might have heard about this, but in 2022, in April, we're going to have the first National School Garden Summit called the Growing School Garden Summit at schoolgardensummit.org. If someone wants to put that in the chat, you guys can check out our website that we just launched today. So we're looking forward to see you all face to face, COVID permitting, as we move forward. So let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to summarize a little bit about the work that we've been doing and the work that we're going to continue to do. So I mentioned webinars and virtual gatherings. So since 2017, we've hosted 38 webinars with an average viewership of 180 people. It was very timely as we started partnering with Sprouts and had capacity to fund folks to do webinars. So we do pay a stipend to our webinar presenters. That happened right around COVID. And obviously during COVID, we had a lot to talk about, and the cadence and the frequency of our webinars was enhanced dramatically from doing, about 6 per year to doing 14 to 16 per year to support one another as we figured out how to put our school gardens or how to run school gardens within the context of COVID. So we're going to continue to do webinars and virtual gatherings. We'll share those with you later today in the presentation. Next slide. So in-person gatherings, conference gatherings, we've been creating these events called SGSO Unite, where we pull together school garden support professionals at other national conferences. We've done about 5 of them, and we'll continue to do them at other national conferences as we move forward. And those usually gather about 70 people per gathering, and this is how we build our network. Our Leadership Institute, which I mentioned, We've had 4 face-to-face leadership institutes, and we just recently completed a virtual leadership institute, and we're planning the next leadership institute for the late fall of 2022. So stay tuned, and we're looking for applicants to come and join with us in Santa Cruz, COVID pending. And as mentioned previously, we're working together as a network and with the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation to host the first ever National School Garden Conference. We're calling it Growing School Garden Summit, and it's going to be in Denver, and we're looking for about 400 people. And I'm very excited to see some of you that all I've seen is your little head on a screen, and then I get to see you in person. So that will happen in April of 2022. Okay, next slide. And then last but not least, our online resources. We have an online forum with about 900 members. Lots of different topics related to school gardening are discussed there. It's searchable. It's a Google group. You could join if you haven't and search it and or pose your questions. And last but not least, our promising practices. And those are resources shared from SGSOs for other SGSOs to implement the key activities that you're responsible for doing as a school garden support professional. So we have about 9 different categories with loads of resources that are from your peers that are all shared and organized. And that's something we pulled together via our virtual leadership institute. So rather than hear from me, I'm gonna invite the voice of some of our members to share. So Lauren Maples, if you can unmute yourself and share a little bit about what the network has meant for you, because for every SGSO, it's something different. And Lauren's been a part of our Leadership Institute and presented at our webinars. And what do you have to say about the network, Lauren?
I have to say this is an amazing network, and also it's very unique because I feel like a lot of us are doing regional work and we tend to be in silos in our region. So it's one space that we can come together and just really unite and get support. The webinars have been really instrumental in how I lead professional development with my staff and my team. That they're archived is such a nice thing. So as new staff members are coming on, we can bring them in the loop and have a common understanding of how we want to deliver our programming and have common themes to discuss as well. I also benefited from being part of the Institute, which was outstanding, and it's changed the way there was a workshop on evaluation. And so it's really changed the way that we just designed our evaluation this past year, and it'll continue, I think, to help us guide us there. And looking at all the work samples that are in the folders that were provided at the Institute and available to people through this work, through this organization, is just, it's amazing to have templates to work from, not always have to go back and start from scratch. So I'm super grateful to get to be a part of this and also continue building relationships that are people who live across the nation, and we get to come together and be here. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Lauren. Next, we're going to have Stephanie Fleet, who's a teacher and garden coordinator in Atlanta, Georgia. And she's new to our network, and she was one of our first participants in our new type of virtual gathering called a solution session. So Stephanie, do you want to share a little bit about your brief experiences with the network and what it meant to your work?
Yes, I will. First of all, thank you for your patience as I had my little audio glitches there. What really worked for me, because I shared with everyone that my issue was having people, my coworkers, participate in the garden. We want it to be utilized as an outdoor classroom, but we also want them to use it if they just want to use it for inspiration for writing, or whether they garden or not. And one of the suggestions that really helped was try to find something they're interested in as it relates to gardening. So now we have a 4th grade class. They're more interested in the science of composting, which could actually help us, because the compost that they are making with this company, they'll be able to donate it to the garden club, and we'll be able to use it for our garden. We have now more people interested in cooking, because that was one of the suggestions. Maybe we could suggest a cooking class. and it made them more interested in bringing produce from the garden into the classroom to cook, and just comparative contrasting for writing sessions. It just gave me a lot of ideas to present to my coworkers that might encourage them to be more participate more fully. So that helped. And I like just getting some of the ideas of what you guys are doing all around the world. So that was kind of comforting too, because I'm not the only one just starting, and I'm not the only one who's running into these problems.
Thank you, Stephanie. And you reiterated a point that we're not in a silo. You might feel like it when you're the one garden lead at your school or your region, but there's people coming up against the same challenges and have solutions, and that's why we meet. So thank you, Stephanie. And now we're going to have one last person share a little bit about her perspective. May Supros, the Director of Programs in Partridge Creek Farm in upstate Michigan. May, what has the network meant to you?
Hi, everybody. First off, it's just so good to see all your beautiful faces. I have leaned on the network a lot in my tenure with school garden organizations. So a couple of ways. One, I was a part of the first institute back in 2015 and just met people from all across the country. So it was just wonderful to meet in person. And then all the resources that have been created in the past several years have been really something I've utilized, that I've used in my own organization, that I've shared with others when they're always like, what resources do you have? I just send them to the SGSO-Network website, which is a great place to look. I also have been able to be a part of a leader. So I was a part of the Institute. I'm presenting, hold on, sorry. I've been a part of the Leadership Institute, this virtual one this year. And so I was able to actually extend myself as a professional through the network. And then finally, I just wanted to share that I was a garden leader in Chicago at the start of my career, at the start of my relationship with SGSO-Network, and I moved to a very remote area. So this network has been vital for me to continue my work in a new place. And so feeling grounded when I moved and left that community, I felt like I still had a community through the work through the network. So yeah, just sharing that, and thank you all for doing the work you do. And I'm really excited about this next chapter with the network, because it's going to be huge. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, May. Next slide to introduce the next chapter. Because we're celebrating, I would say in 2012, would I say we'd still be doing what we're doing? And I wouldn't 100% say yes. And so I want to celebrate all of you for tapping into the network and sharing from our peer-to-peer experiences to continue to strengthen school gardens as we move forward. And let's go to the next slide. And I want to give a shout out, as I mentioned before, the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation, because with their support, we've been able to create our strategic plan, which we're going to share with you momentarily. And we get to create this summit where we're going to gather with 400 school garden leaders from across the country. And so with that, I want to pass this off to Lindsay Waugh, who's going to share a little bit about our strategic planning process. I know that's what some of you are tuning in here today. So thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And hi, everyone. It's super exciting to see so many of us joining together to share in this special moment and to continue to build off the momentum that is only made possible because of each of you and the work you're doing with students and communities each and every day. So I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. I serve as the executive director of the Sprouts Healthy Communities Foundation. And I had the pleasure of connecting with the network about 2.5 years ago. And everything I dial in for and I'm a part of, I continue to learn more, again, from each of you every day. And so as we talk about strategic plan, what I'd love to do is just start with a huge shout out to Sequoia Strategies and just provide a little bit of context about the team that worked with us as we were embarking on a strategic planning journey. And then what I'll also do is walk through a bit of the process and outcomes that we worked through as we were prepping to see what was next for the network. And after that, I'll pass it over to Whitney to get more into the detail. So we had the pleasure of working with an organization by the name of Sequoia Strategies as we took on the process of strategic planning. So we had the pleasure of partnering with Santi and Justin, who are two experts who have worked with more than 100 nonprofit organizations across the country, really thinking about organizational outcomes, impact, performance, and then strategic planning. And so with that process, we really wanted to hang our hat on bringing equity to the forefront of how we thought about not only what the network was and how we define the network, but also what we saw our membership and the broader community seeing as a possibility in the network. And so as we began this process, we spent time from March until June working on a pretty robust outreach strategy to gather as much feedback and two-way conversation from the membership and the broader community to help inform our planning process. And so there were three key areas that I'll touch on. So first off, across the more than 4,200 members who engage in the network, we distributed surveys. I'm pleased to share that we have about a third of our network base that is more heavily active, participating in webinars and our online forum. And of that group, we had just under 350 members submit fully completed surveys. So about 30% of that engaged membership participated. We also conducted interviews and focus groups. So in-depth intensive interviews with individuals both in the network and then beyond the network to get their thoughts and ideas about how we can be most effective. And then with our focus groups, we had funders, national organizations, school districts, SGSO organizations participate in those facilitated discussions again. So we're really having that two-way opportunity to learn, what is most important to who we serve. And then finally, we did some deep dive working sessions with our interim leadership committee. So over a series of 6 facilitated discussions, we were able to take the data that we were gathering along the way and bring that all together to say, not just what do we think, we need to do with our strategic plan, but what are we really hearing that our member base and the community is looking for. So through all of that, what I would say is that woven into all the goals and strategies that we worked through was a strong commitment of equity, diversity, inclusion, and really making sure that not only the members that are engaged, but maybe those people that don't even know about the benefits of the network, how do we reach them? How do we engage them in the process? So we're really broadening access to all these great resources for as many people as possible. And so through all of that, I am so pleased to share, Laura, I'll take the next slide. We have updated our mission statement through this process. And I'm just going to take a moment to read it because I think it's something we can all really connect with. So as you think about the network, we are an open peer-to-peer learning network with a goal of growing, sustaining, and elevating a movement for equitable, garden-based education. We provide professional leadership and development, resources and platforms to connect members serving at school, district, regional, state, and national levels. So I think in any of that, there's each of us that can find our place. And, I hope that you're as excited as we are to, anchor into a mission statement to now help better guide our work. I'll take the next slide. And so as we think about that mission statement, what does that really translate to? That's more students in gardens, that's more teachers feeling confident and connected to utilizing their school gardens, and it's more policies, both at the school and state level, as well as beyond, to help strengthen and incorporate school gardens into education. So, I've kind of shared the big picture piece. I'm going to turn it over to Whitney now to walk us through what that really looks like.
Thanks,
Thanks so much, Lindsay. So great. Lindsay kind of shared what we feel like success looks like, and I'm now going to share a little bit about how we hope to get there. All of this got fleshed out in our strategic plan. And so we essentially had 4 big categories. You'll see those on the left or right of each slide. And in each category, we created a whole set of from-to statements. And so I'm going to just share a few of those from each category. There are many more in the strategic plan, which Tristana, I think Tristana will share, if she hasn't already, a link to where you can download the entire strategic plan. But here are just a few. So within the overall network, we want to move from a network that supports those connected to gardens, but we may have limited impact on the larger movement. We want to move toward being a network that's pushing the school garden movement forward and championing policies and systems that promote the institutionalization of gardens. We also want to move from this one aims to be open, but may not be as diverse or equitable as desired, to being authentically diverse and equitable in all of our work. Next slide, please. In the category of operations and infrastructure, hang on, sorry, I have to change my window. Here we go. We're looking at moving from being semi-formal and not fully representative on our leadership council. So far, the leadership council has sort of just been people who are like, sure, I'll show up for a phone call. And we're moving that toward having a diverse formal leadership council with committees, boards, et cetera, and with clear opportunities to join so that everyone within the network knows how they can get involved in leadership if they're interested in that. We're also looking at moving from a situation where some stakeholders have an unclear role about how to best support their purpose toward having really clear roles, open to interested members who are consistently engaged. So you'll see a theme, you'll see this in the membership category too, that we really want to clarify for members a lot of different opportunities for how they might get engaged, whether at the governance board level or at a committee level or an action group. So that'll be kind of coming through the next few months through the network. Next slide, please. Within programs and services, again, this is just one example of the from-to statements. We're looking at moving from strong member-valued programming, but limited use of data in some areas, toward being a network that leverages the right data for quicker insight to provide programming that is strong, useful, and member-valued. Next slide, please. And as I kind of already mentioned under membership, we've had very strong member valued but unclear membership, and we want to move toward remaining strong in our membership, really committed to peer-to-peer learning, networking, and collaboration, where membership is clearly defined, participants self-identify with and have agency within the network. So that gives you a sense of some of our goals that we're moving toward. Next slide, please. All right, yes, finances. In the category of finances, thank you, Laura, for advancing the slides. We currently have a limited diversity in our funding streams, and we're looking toward moving to be a network with diversified funding, which we all know, those of us that are part of SGSOs know that is kind of a key to resilience and sustainability.
So we've got these amazing visions and goals for success, but we also needed an organizational structure to kind of help us get there. So we've developed what you see here, a structure that we hope will maintain kind of the unique, organic, and emergent nature of the network, while also giving us organization and kind of clear avenues through which everyone can get involved as they're interested. So first, kind of the most important aspect of our structure are you, the members, encompassing kind of all we do. We're really going to aim to solicit feedback and ideas in a more formal way on a regular basis from you all, but we'll also just be open to your feedback at all times, i.e. just shoot me an email. So then going then to the kind of the smallest, most involved level of the structure on the left-hand side is our staff, currently just a staff of one, myself, but our current thought is to increase that to a couple more staff in the future, most likely over the course of kind of 2 to 3 years. Next, we'll have a governance board of 14 members who will provide kind of guidance and action in achieving our strategic plan. This board will be more involved than the average nonprofit board, kind of taking on key actions for the network. We'll go into a little bit more detail in just a second. And then from there, we'll have action groups, which will be groups of members that are both kind of self-formed, meaning that Members can suggest and form groups themselves, as well as groups organized by the network. And these groups will work on a variety of projects. We envision the action groups not only to kind of collectively achieve the goals of a network in our usual collaborative way, but also to act as kind of a clear and organized space for energized, motivated members to get involved and network with one another and have a direct path to leadership within the network if that's desired. Next slide. So our next big step in setting up this structure is to recruit new members to our board. Next slide, please. It will consist of 14 members total. We'll start with our 8 interim leadership committee members, our ILC members, and then we're going to bring on 6 new members. That's the process we're currently in now. It'll be remote with all the members are kind of in different corners of the United States. It is an unpaid volunteer position, but it's one that we hope will be kind of a natural tie-in to everyone's personal work and missions. New board members will serve a 3-year term, and each person has the opportunity to serve up to 3 collective separate terms. We'll have monthly 90-minute board meetings, and each board member will be expected to lead or co-lead an action group of their choice. Next slide, please. We're looking for folks who are based in the US and able to contribute at least 5 hours a month. Those who are passionate about school gardens, especially with those who are interested in a focus on centering justice, equity, and inclusion in just everything that we do. And then we're looking for those who have just a breadth of professional experience, especially with those in strategic decision-making, leadership or partnership development, as well as in cultivating relationships, kind of that sort of thing. So this and more details can be found on our website on the board recruitment tab. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk live or kind of set up one-on-one conversations with any of our ILC members if you'd like to learn more. So the board's main objectives will be to utilize the strategies that we set out in the strategic plan. These are going to be the main focus items for the next couple of years, which will be to use data effectively and consistently, create and utilize a communications plan, establish member-tailored programming, implement effective structures and processes, focus kind of more on systems change and supporting policies to advance the school garden network, school garden movement, work towards equity within membership as well as leadership, and develop and strengthen partnerships. And we're not expecting any one member to have all of the skill sets to kind of achieve all of these different strategies. We're really looking for members that are excited to contribute to at least 1 or 2 of these strategies so we can collectively achieve our goals. So in terms of timeline, our application is currently open and will be so until September 10th. We'll be notifying all applicants for interviews on September 27th, which will be held between October 4th and 15th. And we'll make final notifications on October 22nd. So joining the governance board is just one avenue for involvement, but I'm going to pass it over to Laura Thompson to share a couple more ways to get involved if you'd like to.
My name is Laura, and I am with Big Green based in Boulder, Colorado. I've been involved with the SGSO network for about 1.5 years now, so really excited to be part of the interim leadership committee and now moving on to the board. So we're going to talk a little bit about ways to get involved other than being directly on the governance board. So we have some active action groups that we are setting up. You can also create your own action group based on your interest or needs. So we'll be forming groups and asking members to join. So right now, our active action groups that we are setting up are equity, inclusion, justice, and diversity. The Growing School Garden Summit, we need a team, an action group behind that to help us plan a great summit for next year. Leadership Institute facilitation, webinar planning and implementation, and SGSO Unite event planning. So the opportunity to bring our network together in person. Some potential action groups that we are considering developing are leadership pathways, mentorship program. So the idea of developing out a mentorship program for those within the network, policy advocacy, promising practices and web resources, research and literature review, social media strategy, and more. So all of the those action groups listed under active action groups would benefit from participants. And the specific structure of each group, as well as frequency of projects, will depend on the group. If you are interested in joining one already formed or creating your own action group, please email Tristana at tristana@sgsonetwork.org. If someone could add that email into the chat, that would be great. Oh, and it's right here in front of us, but if you want to also add it into the chat, that would be awesome. So another way that you can participate in the network is by participating or presenting on one of our monthly webinars or virtual gatherings. Upcoming, we have a solutions session in September on funding and sustainability, where we will provide peer coaching to school garden practitioners on a specific challenge. If you have a challenge within this topic, there's still time to sign up and receive support on your challenge. In October, we'll have a webinar on school garden programs run by or in partnership with school district food service programs. And in November, we're going to have a virtual gathering for larger school garden support organizations to connect. If you'd like to request a webinar or type of gathering, or if you'd like to present at any of these webinars, you can head to our webinars page on sgsonetwork.org and fill out the interest form there. Our forum is organized through Google Groups. So I think a lot of folks who are on the call today have seen and been on the forum, but if you haven't, it's a really great place to post things that you're interested in, have questions about, or upcoming webinars or events that you want the overall network to know about. It's a really vibrant, supportive, and informative community. You can play around with the settings in there to receive emails when they come through in a daily digest or weekly, or you can opt out of emails as well, but it's just a really good way to stay on top of what's going on and communicate with other members of the network. Finally, you can sign up to stay informed via our newsletter and head to sgsonetwork.org/connect to sign up and be informed of what we have going on. So now I am going to pass it over to John to lead some Q&A. If folks have questions, please feel free to unmute or add your question to the chat, which we're going to be monitoring.
Great, thank you, Laura, Lindsay, Tristana, Whitney. So yeah, anyone wants to unmute, we'll be here for the next few minutes to answer any questions. Or type in the chat. So T. Lee's Tree, buddy down in San Luis Obispo. So Teresa asks, what is the main difference between the National Children and Youth Garden Symposium and the Growing School Garden Summit? So the Growing School Garden Summit will be the first national summit dedicated that focuses on, that centers school garden as the work. Whereas the Children and Youth Garden Symposium has a very much larger umbrella. I will recognize there will be crossover, like as in many conferences, but our main foci will be school gardens rather than the larger bucket of youth gardening. Whereas when you go to the Children and Youth Garden Symposium, all different, after school clubs, 4-H, master gardeners, garden clubs come on in there in that audience. And what kind of partner? So Sally asked about what kind of partnership are you envisioning as one of your goals? Well, Sally is typing in from the University of Arizona, and being that she's a professor and academic that works in school gardens, we are definitely looking to work with more researchers and universities that are studying and sharing the impacts of school gardens. Via our summit, we do want to gather these researchers and academics, similar to Sally ran a gathering of school garden professionals and academics, but to continue that discussion. What are the questions that we're looking to have answered through an academic lens? How can we make partnerships between our school districts and our universities to strengthen the school garden movement? So I would say, Sally, your expertise and the work that you're doing, that is something that I do feel the network would like to expand upon. Other ILC members that are on the call, if you want to discuss any other partnerships that you're envisioning and part of the goal, but Sally, since that is something that I've been interested in, that's what I shared. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, Sally, I really appreciate that question. And honestly, I'd say any and all partnerships. I think there's probably infinite levels of groups to connect with and folks to align with and make sure they're aligning with each other, and creating spaces for y'all to find each other. So I'd say any and all partnerships. I'm sure there's plenty that we don't even know about at this point that in the future we will have forged and made. So hopefully that answers your question.
Cool, thanks.
And we definitely welcome, again, in terms of being really member driven, y'all's ideas and thoughts. Who should we be gathering together? Who should we be developing as partners and having you all connect with each other?
I think I'll also add, so in looking at the action groups that we are going to be developing out, and also thinking about some of the strategic priorities that we have for the next couple of years, I could see areas like policy advocacy being an area where we'd want to develop partnerships to help us really advocate for this movement as a whole. I could also see, potentially in research and creating more evaluation capacity across the movement, wanting to have support in that area. So that might be university partnerships or, partnerships with more research aligned centers. And, kind of goes on from there, but in thinking about some of those strategic priorities, what the best organizations would be, not only within the school gardens field, but also thinking about aligned movements, how we can support one another.
Great. So a couple other questions came in the chat. Is the e-list sign up on the contacts tab of the SGSO network webpage the same as the newsletter? Yes, it is. And on that contact tab or connect tab, I think it is on the SGSO network page, there's two ways to connect. One is through our e-list, which you can sign up there, and the other is to how to join our forum, which is our Google group. And then there was a question about the cost of attending the Growing School Garden Summit, and will it be sponsorships available? And so in the chat here, I'm going to link to the registration and logistics page. And right now our fee schedule for the 4-day summit is $450. There are presenter discounts. So if you present as a workshop session presenter, there'll be a $100 discount. And we are in the process of finalizing our scholarship application, but we're looking at the criteria of organizations that might not have the financial means to make it to a national conference, to support them, marginalized community members to increase their participation, and we're having a young leaders or young professional track for folks that are new to this profession to support them to attend the conference. And all of the information, the finalized scholarship information and registration costs will all be launching in October of, in a month and a half or so. We do have a call for session presenters out. So if you do want to share your work, whether you want to do that through a 5-minute lightning talk or through a 90-minute session, or if you have a larger topic that you want to bring to the table, we have lots of different opportunities, from 90-minute workshops to what we're calling deeper dive sessions, where we're looking for someone that has a strong defined concept to lead more of like a mini workshop, a 3 to 4 hour session. And Sally, we're hoping to pull together academic and researchers to join in a 3 to 4 hour deeper dive session with some of the folks that are doing this work from a university perspective. Looking through the chat here, any other questions? So there was a question if you can share more about the decision-making models that you're using and how you plan to use the governance board. And I'm gonna pass that one off to Tristana because she is the role of the person, her role is to coordinate all of that. So Tristana, do you wanna talk about our decision-making structure and our plans?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely. And honestly, Tiffany, they are kind of still in development and will be, as per our normal nature of being a collaborative kind of emergent group, developed once we have our governance board members and identify what works best for our structure, the people who are present and are, making decisions, but essentially very much a collaborative entity that will be focusing on kind of the priorities of the overarching mission of the network. One of the kind of main strategies that we'll be using is what we're calling a veto vote. So identifying, identifying something that's up for discussion, and instead of kind of voting for something, really identifying, do I have a veto vote, something that I cannot kind of stick with or cannot kind of put my name behind, that I can't really agree with? And if that's the case, then you vote with a veto, and then kind of the whole group has to go back into more discussion, kind of come to more of a consensus, and then do another round of voting. So that is kind of one of the strategies that we've utilized and will most likely utilize moving forward. But again, the overarching kind of decision-making structure will be fully determined once we have our full crew together at the beginning of November.
Wow, thank you, Sally, for sharing in the chat that you're working with the National Science Foundation to examine the role of school gardens in fostering resilience as kids are returning to school. So that is really exciting, and it would be great to see what role school gardens foster as kids are coming back into schools. Exciting things to talk about. One other question that was asked about the types of partnerships or goals as we move forward. I'm very much interested in pulling together job alike and scale alike discussions. I know a lot of our webinars have been like greenhouses and school gardens, and all different types of orgs will attend, from one school garden to multiple school gardens to greenhouse production firms that employ high school youth. So I am looking forward to make a more pointed virtual gathering structure, as was mentioned, that we're going to have some that are just for large scale SGSOs, ones that are supporting multiple school gardens over a large region or a state. And so I feel that by pulling job alike and scale alike, we'll be able to take some great steps forward in terms of eliminating redundancy and learning from one another. And that's something we're doing as well with school food service programs that support school gardens. School food service is, a part of schools. It's institutionalized. There's funding that comes with it, and many school districts are using school gardens as a way to do what school food service nutrition services divisions are, slated to do, which is, provide nutrients for kids and healthy and wellness ways for students. So I'm very much interested in looking at the role of school food service in school gardens. All right, I was just filling the air. So we're coming to the close of our time. If you have any more questions, throw them in the chat, but I'm going to pass it back off to Tristana to close us out.
Great, thanks everybody. And as we've said many times, please just email me if you have any questions or want to talk further. Before I go, I wanted to give huge appreciations to our interim leadership committee. They've really shepherded and stewarded us through this process in the last year. You've heard from many members today, but we also have Emily Shipman from Kids Gardening, Nathan Larson from Wisconsin School Garden Network, and Sam Ellery from the Office of the State Superintendent of Education of DC. So thanks to the ILC. And then if you go to the last slide, just contact information. You can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at SGSO Network. And then here is our website and my email. But thanks everybody for joining. We're so excited for the next developments. We could not do it without you. You've really helped us to get to this stage, and we're excited for what's next. You have a good rest of your day.